Hey guys, Mr. Behrman here. Today's learning objective is in orange, and we are learning to use our linear algebra skills to solve problems from a given context. And basically what that means is we're going to get a question about some kind of scenario, and we need to apply our linear algebra skills to answer questions and explore the relationships that we're given. So let's jump into our question. So in that white box, Mr. Behrman is going on holiday and looking into rental cars. The cost of his two options are below. Option A, $100 plus $10 per day. And option B, $25 per day with nothing up front. Question 1 asks us, using tables, equations, and graphs, explore the relationship between comparing option A and option B. So a lot of work to do for this first question. The first one is explore the relationship. So let's call it the x-axis would be the number of days. So let's say you've gone away for 0 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll stop at 5, but that would go down for a bit more. And y, that would be the cost of those days. So let's have a look. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write option A, and then next to that, I'm going to do option B as well, and we'll be able to explore that. So option A, $100 plus $10 per day. So that means that option there, at a minimum, is going to cost me $100. And $10 per day after that, well, that would be 110, 120, 130, 140, and then 150. Let's have a look at option B. So option B is $25 per day. So if I don't take it out, well, that's nothing for that first day, but it will be $25 extra per day. So that will be 50, 75, 100, and 125. So I've used a table to get an idea of how much it would cost. The next step is I'd probably want to start looking at equations that help that. So for option A, using our y equals mx plus c formula. So y is equal to the gradient is how much it changes per day. And every day it's changing by 10. So that would be 10x plus how much it would be at 0. So that would be the formula for option A. And then option B, adopting a similar approach. Y is equal to, so let's have a look at the gradient. Well, that's 25, 25, and 25. So we've done enough to identify a pattern. So that's going up 25. And the initial value at 0 is 0. So there will be no plus 0 at the end. We're just going to ignore that. And those would be to our equations. And the final step, I've used Desmos to draw this graph, but we'll then need to draw a graph that represents the relationship that we've looked at. And we can see the beginning bit. So we've gone up to 5, which is here, but I've extended it all the way to 14 days, which is about 2 weeks, and that's a normal school holiday. So Mr. Behrman wouldn't be going on holidays any longer than that. Okay, so let's have a look at question 2. So question 2 asks, how much would option A cost if Mr. Behrman was going on holiday for 3 days? So we've already used that in our graph or in our table. That would be $130. And okay, question 3. How much would option B cost if Mr. Behrman was on holiday for 7 days? So we can see by our graph, we didn't quite go up to 7 days, and we could probably estimate using our graph, but we wouldn't be precise. But to be precise, would probably be wanting to use that formula. So y is equal to 25x, x being the number of days, 25 times 7. And that means that option would cost me $175 for those 7 days. Question 4, if Mr. Behrman was going on holiday for 5 days, which option would you recommend? So there are a few ways to do this. You can just look at the table and go, oh yeah, option B is cheaper. You can use your graph to figure out the green line, which is option B, is cheaper at that point than option A. Or you could use the equation to calculate both of them as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the table because I've already done the maths. So I'll just write option A would be 150. Option B would be 125. Mr. Behrman should use option B. And that's because I'm saving $25 by using that option. And the final part to our question, I'll switch to the pink marker, would be option 5. This is a high level skill. For which days would option B be cheaper? Which days would option B be cheaper? So what we need to do is we actually need to find the point of interception. Anything in this direction, option B is cheaper, and anything in that direction, option A is cheaper. So what we need to do is we need to figure out the point of interception, or the x value for that point of interception, and we then need to make a determination about when is option A cheaper, when is option B cheaper. So what we're going to do is we're going to find that point of intersection. We know that at that point, 10x plus 100, that is going to be equal to 25x. So that means 15x should be equal to 100, and x should be equal to 100 divided by 15. And that means x is equal to 6 2/3. And that's a good number for us because if you think of hiring rental cars, you can't really hire it for a part day. You get it for the day or you don't get it for the day. So what that number means is anything before 6. So before 6 days, or sorry, let's change that to a better language. So let's say 6 or less days. Option B, option B would be cheaper. We'll call option B. And for 7 or more days, option A would be cheaper. And if you have a look at that point, so 7 is here, so it makes sense. Option A is cheaper than option B at all of those points. And at 6 or less, we can see the green line, or option B, lower than the option A line. So what we've done is we've used our linear algebra skills to solve problems in given contexts. We drew a table, we came up with equations from those tables, we drew those graphs, we substituted numbers into those equations to find out days. We then considered options, and we even used our point of interception rule or work to find out when option A and option B are cheaper. So this is a really good example. We've used heaps and heaps of our linear algebra skills to solve problems in given contexts. And this skill very useful in the real world when you are comparing rental car prices. Hopefully you found this video useful, guys. Now let's get into some questions.